Good morning and welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. It's not just me, Ian, and Justin. We've got a fourth with us as well. Cannot wait for her insight. But before we get there, thank you to our buddy Brett Nelson and follow his advice. Help us hit that like button. Help us get to 10,000 subscribers as we continue to go through the season and get closer and closer to SEC play. Also, make sure you head to InsideTexas.com, sign up, get the best recruiting scoop on the Longhorn internet. We've got a lot to talk about today. We are getting closer and closer to game day. UTSA heads to Austin again, this time a little bit different team than the one that showed up in 2022. Same coach, though, with Jeff Traylor. Same coach on both sidelines. Justin, I'm going to throw this to you while we welcome people into the live stream, but you got to have at least one or two good stories you can share about either Jeff or Kurt Traylor, who are over in San Antonio and was up in your neck of the woods in Gilmer for a long time.
Yeah, let me think about it for just a second. I don't want to give anything away or burn any trust.
You told me one that I think
I'll give you one. How about the story about the backup kicker?
Okay.
So I'm at a practice. This is a long time ago. I'm at a practice, and everything seems to be going smooth. You know, Jeff puts a lot of autonomy on the assistant coaches. He coaches his coaches really hard, and those guys kind of run the show. And so there just so happened to be the new. I think it was one of the news channels was out there, maybe Channel 7 or I can't remember exactly, but some news channels were out there doing little things pre-prep, and so they were finishing practice with special teams, kicking field goals and stuff like that, and so the backup, for some reason, the regular kicker couldn't be there. I don't know if it had something to do with the band or something in school. I'm not sure what was happening. So they had the backup kicker doing it, and he could not make an extra point. And after like the second time, Jeff lost his mind. Like he was MFing everybody and SOB and what are we doing here? We can't win if we can't find a backup kicker. Like it was the end of the world. And it just showed you how competitive and just how driven and just how, because honestly, he didn't say it in this like negative, hateful tone that you may assume. It was more, it almost made guys laugh because of his extremism. And honestly, I think the players dug it. I think the players were into it. You know, I'd never met high school kids that called their coach by their first name. Josh Walker, I was in Jeff's office and Josh Walker walks in and goes, "Hey, Jeff, I'm headed to class." I said, "Josh is a 4-star linebacker committed to A&M. Why are you calling him Jeff?" He goes, "That's what he wants." He said that he didn't care what we call him. He wants us to be personable. And he doesn't care what you call him. As long as we show up and play hard and do our job, Jeff says you can call him a jerk. As long as you show up and do your job every day, Jeff doesn't care. And and there's something to that. There's a person of, there's something to that. And so, that's just one of probably a dozen I've got, but it just shows you, he can be a fun dude. He can liven up. And just when you think practice is over and he's playing Mr. PR in front of KLTV, the backup kicker misses 2 extra points and he goes 8 crap over everybody. We got a little girl with us this morning, so we got to keep that language and vernacular low. East Texas high school practices, it can get a little vulgar. But yeah, man, the day Jeff couldn't find a backup kicker, man, I'll never forget that. Those people at Channel 7, they didn't know what to film and what they should show on the news. And I was like, buddy, you better get with Jeff before you start filming stuff.
One of the things that has held true about football is when they name things after people, it's either because you were born 100 years ago and made the decision, you gave a lot of money, or you won a lot of games. And it's Jeff Traylor Stadium up there in Gilmer, Texas. And I know he's done well for himself, but they did not name that stadium after him because he gave a lot of money. He won 3 state championships with the Buckeyes.
God, why? You got that
You're the East Texas guy.
I know. It's at least, I believe it's 3. It's at least 2. I'm pretty sure it's 3. I'm pretty sure
But
it's early. I know some of y'all are thinking it's not. It's early. Some of y'all are thinking it's not. It's early. We were
it's
doing
early. It's
last night.
early. But Jeff Traylor leads a UTSA team that is in a little bit different stage of their program compared to Texas. Things were almost flipped a couple of years ago, and it still didn't really matter. UTSA was kind of at the peak of the Frank Harris era with Rashad Wisdom. Even Trey Moore was on that team. That was a team competing for Conference USA and even American Athletic Conference titles. Texas was on the way up. They were on the ropes for a minute, but came back after figuring things out. Now these teams are in very, very different places. Texas is obviously number 2 in the country. I think I just posted. They are I'll find it.
Joe, also, if you remember that game with UTSA a couple of years ago, it wasn't until that Bijan touchdown run in the early third quarter. That game was tied, people.
Right.
That game was tied. And Bijan kind of went ahead and did Bijan type stuff. But yeah, they were in different directions.
They've gone in different directions. Texas is a 35-point favorite. But even Ian over on Inside Texas today, you wrote about, what should Texas game plan be against UTSA, and there's not a player they have to really prepare for like in years past. Just curious, can you go through some of the things you noted when talking about the Roadrunners and what the Longhorns game plan should be for them?
Well, they're built. The way I put it is they're kind of built for dominance in the G5. So it seems like a big emphasis in the portal for them was getting big linemen on offense and defensive lines so they can bully teams in the G5. Jalen Garth, former Longhorn, is the right tackle. They got a Tulane guy on the defensive line that's legitimately very good. They have big bodies up front on both sides of the ball. But their skill talent is completely depleted because they've had guys that were there for forever, or they were Frank Harris, a quarterback that was there for forever, that are gone, graduated or taken in the portal by a Texas or an Oregon. And I don't think they've quite reloaded and found the next wave of guys. So even though they're built to be big in the trenches, they're obviously not going to compete with Texas like that. And the way that they gave Texas a game in 2022 was spreading them around and throwing the ball. They had a couple really good wide receivers. One of them ended up getting poached by
Ole Miss. They were Power 5 good.
Frank Harris was like a fourth-year guy at the time, and they spread Texas out and threw the ball around and were able to give them a little bit of a fight for a while. It's just they don't have the guys for that right now until David Amador or whoever else emerges from their recruiting. And
they don't have the guys at those skill positions. They don't have the guys at quarterback either. I know with Owen McCown and Eddie Lee Marburger, and I just realized, I remember Demetrius Davis, he's on that team as well. But none of those guys are the solution that Frank Harris was. And even when Frank Harris came to play at Texas, he was limited. I think that was after knee surgery 4 or so, and he had more after that.
He's been dinged up. Yeah.
He was a warrior for that program, and someone who I think is still with the program working for UTSA's NIL collective. And a good comment from Roaster here. Jeff looked so pre-defeated this week in his press conference. Looks like a coach whose roster has been pillaged. Texas, I don't know, they didn't pillage, but they probably took one of the best defensive players in UTSA history. And Justin, one of the things Traylor said on Wednesday that we wrote about over at Inside Texas was they've gotten their butt whipped in games before, but A, that was their first ever loss to Texas State as a program. And B, something Traylor said was they've never had to have their bounce back game against Texas. But I'm curious, is that Traylor trying to be gamesmanship or trying to, motivate his team? Because if you watch that video, it's on, I think, the UTSA rival site. He looks defeated. Is that a Traylor tactic, or you think he's being realistic?
No, I think he's being realistic. There's no tactic with. I really don't think. I think he's just being realistic. He looks like Roaster nailed that. He looks like a guy that has had people come in his house and take his best toys. And when you're playing college football and you're watching a guy in Austin who is playing with a island of misfit toys, he has so many options he doesn't know what to do with. It can be a little disheartening when they're on your schedule Saturday night. Look, UTSA is going to play a better game this Saturday than they did last Saturday. I can promise you that. That's just the way Jeff builds these programs and the way these kids are built. It may not matter. And I think that's what's getting to Jeff. They're going to come out firing. They're going to come out fire and brimstone. They're going to come out with an edge. Jeff's going to have them motivated. But they're still facing potentially the best team in college football, the team they're chasing, the program in essence you're kind of going after. And so Jeff just sees things as real. And he's real with his players. He'll set them straight. There's no fluff. There's no sugarcoating because life doesn't offer fluff unless you're eating a banana and peanut butter sandwich. You just don't get it. And so with Jeff, he's just being real. And I love that. I've watched his last three after that Texas State game because I know how much that one hurt, even though GJ was on the other sideline. It's just tough when Zahari Franklin, you develop that kid. He goes to Ole Miss. Trey Moore didn't have a star coming out of high school. Jeff developed that guy. Now he's in Austin, running, causing havoc. So I can understand why Jeff feels this way. It's only natural because of how ultra competitive he is.
Ian, one of the things you wrote about when talking about this game is what the Texas offense might see. And last year they saw a lot of curveballs thrown their way. That had to do with the Big 12 in multiple senses. But you think, and you wrote about this on Inside Texas, UTSA may throw that familiar curveball the Longhorns' way on defense.
Yeah, I think this is a game where you got to anticipate the other team will come out in a defensive formation they don't normally play. Usually for Texas, that means the flyover, the 3-deep safety defense. I don't know if I've ever seen UTSA use it with Jeff Traylor, but this is the week to do it because are you going to ask that secondary to hold up the deep shots against Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo and Matthew Golden? I don't think so. I don't know if they have guys that can run with them. Denver Harris, it felt like they made a big bet in the offseason on Denver Harris solving that problem, and that has not panned out, judging by the results against Texas State. So I think you got to play deep and try to keep Texas in front of you, make Texas sustain drives, eat up clock. What's the worst thing that could happen? You get blown out. That's probably going to happen anyway. Maybe you can get blown out 41-3 instead of 70-3. Yeah.
If they have a better showing than they did the previous Saturday and they come out of that healthy, that's something you build on in film room. So when they get ready for conference play.
Going to go to a quick comment. Thank you, Texas Beats, for the super chat. Were you at the Michigan game? You're a lot taller than I thought. I was there, right on 6 feet. So helps me if some recruits lying to me about being 6'1" and I'm looking down at them. Can't get one past me. But thank you for the super chat. So Justin,
well, tougher for me. I'm looking up at all of them. So, but he saw you.
Are you going to OU to play offensive line? Why?
Oh man,
maybe
you gotta get him on the recruiting beat. He would get numbers, baby.
Maybe he saw you next to me though, in which case you'd look even taller than otherwise.
Works out a certain way. Justin, what are you looking to see from the Texas offense in this game? I know that we don't expect Texas to be playing its starters all 4 quarters. So what do you want to see from the offense?
I want to see 20 carries from Jarrett Gibson. I want to see 150 yards, if possible, from guys not named Jaden Blue. let these young pups eat. I want to see some Ryan Wingo targets. I want to see more Jonte Cook targets and not deep shots. I don't even think we've seen many deep shots in the first 2 games of the season. It's almost like Sark's kind of holding those back. I think we saw one against Michigan. So, hey, let's just run the dang ball. Joe Cook has a T-shirt that says it. I believe in it. Run the dang ball. Get in there. Win the game. Get out healthy. Give the fans a show on Saturday night. Don't run up the score on the guy that's 50 miles down the road. Just get that W and let it be the Jarrett Gibson, Ryan Wingo, and Jordan Washington show. And if that means Arch Manning plays in the second half, by God, Sark, let him throw the ball a few times.
Ian, you think we may see some new formations from Texas on offense? Or not new, like new we haven't seen this year, but is in repertoire.
If you get, against the 3-down, a really good way to beat up on 3-down teams is to play with the extra offensive lineman, the 6th offensive lineman at tight end. And so we could see that, especially if they do the flyover deal. A good way to get teams out of flyover is to play with extra tight ends. And if you play like a Malika Ogbo or something, then they have to start bringing guys down into the box and you can just run them over. So maybe we'll see that. It feels like probably that's in their repertoire, especially based on a little bit of what we've seen from Gunnar Helm blocking this year. I think you're going to want an option that's a little more physical. He looks awesome overall, but he's not quite he's not Malik Ogbo as a blocker.
Two things we got to notice in Ann Arbor was that, one, Malik Ogbo still wears number 80. 2, Jaden Chapman wears a receiver eligible number, or he was during warmups. And I don't think, if you have him wearing, I can't remember if it was like 95 or something like that. Like,
yeah, I think so.
Hide that. You can't hide that from our eyes and from 111,000 people there. So I think there was only one candidate last year in Ogbo as the big tight end, the Big 12 tight end. Now they feel like maybe they have more than one.
Joe, did you see where Jaden Chapman's brother committed yesterday?
To where?
Evan Chapman, the basketball player, Alabama, Birmingham. Hey, remember, that's one of the things I loved about Jaden is he could ball. He had really good feet in basketball. His brother's a baller. So congratulations. I know Miss Janine is very happy for her boys. So big props to Evan committing to Alabama, Birmingham.
And I think Jaden Chapman needs some props as well, because if you go to his quarterback's film from Chapman's senior year, it left a lot to be desired from Chapman himself. Now he's in a position where Texas coaches trust him to be a tight end, to be a tackle. Like, that's a lot of development. And I think a lot of people, they see Jaden Blue not play his senior year and go to the star he is now and offer him a lot of praise. Very well deserved. I think Chapman deserves it as well, because his senior film wasn't awesome.
It was suspect. And now he's in a position where the coaches trust him to not only block, but maybe even catch a pass at some point. And that's pretty cool. Before we keep on going with our UTSA discussion, got to give some love to our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer. So here is LC.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Wrongful deaths.
I live for those.
I know. It's awesome.
Keep
on going with some of our UTSA discussion. Justin, I know not to panic when it comes to recruiting. Well, recruiting, sorry. No, not to panic when it comes to recruiting under Sark, but I can't help but feel a little anxious about corner recruiting Any updates there? Caleb Chester's committed.
Yeah. Yeah, Nicola's in the coverage. He brought this up yesterday. I think on one of our lives last night. So I want to make sure and get to this because he was looking at, potentially trying to flip Sellers and Guillory. Look, I got one name for you. Gianni Edwards, cornerback out of North Forney. He's committed to Arizona right now. If I was a Texas fan, I would pay a little bit more attention to him than I would some of these other ones. I think Texas has kind of said bye to some of those earlier targets they had in the spring and the summertime. They're not going to go big in corner in this cycle. They will go big in 2026. I can promise you that. But they're they feel good. They brought in 4, I think, in last year's cycle. So this one's going to be possibly 2 maximum. And then you have to talk about Zealous Hicks potentially reclassifying. That's another conversation as well because he can play at all 3 levels in the secondary. But Gianni Edwards is the kid I think you should remember. Arizona commit out of North Forney. Mario Edwards' son, former defensive end of the Dallas Cowboys. Big brother Mario Edwards Jr. played at Denton Ryan. Played at Florida State like his dad. I remember Mario Edwards when as a high schooler, watching him play for the corner for the Dallas Cowboys. And so, that's the guy, UT Park, and that's the dude that you want.
Gonna go to, where is it? Oh, Roger G. Justin, could you tell us about Zealous Hicks? Seems like he just popped up on the radar. Now he might commit and possibly reclassify. He didn't just pop up on the radar. He visited twice over the spring. But the second part of that, might commit, might possibly reclassify. He is scheduled to announce today, and that's one that we're definitely tracking.
Yeah, for Zealous, we talked about this last night. I hate the comps, but we get asked about the comps, and then I start looking for comps. Zealous is one of those guys. He's a little bit of old school. He will come down and bring hat. He'll play the alley. He comes down in the box more than you would think, and really a good tackler, good in coverage as well. He kind of reminds me if you would have put Devontae Davis at safety. That was always kind of the talk when he was being recruited out of Florida. Was he a corner? Was he a safety because of his length? Hicks is more explosive. He's more twitchy than Devontae was, but he has some similar tendencies there. And so that's kind of what I see in Zealous. And yeah, he's been on the radar because of our trusty managing editor, Joe Cook. This guy's had more Zealous Hicks info than the entire staff combined in the last 6 months. And so this one's picked up pretty well. And I can't wait to see who he picks today. I think it could be a good day.
Get a couple more recruiting questions in. Just a dude. Thank you for joining. You already talked about the defensive lineman from Colorado. He's talking about 2026 defensive tackle. Luckily, he gives us a nickname, T.I. Umukais. He's from Cherry Creek, which is the same high school as Gunnar Helm. Kenny Baker threw him an offer. I mean, the relationship just started here. I know that Oklahoma, if you go and look at On3 site, Sooner Scoop, he's been talked about over there a decent amount. So this is one that just started, but Kenny Baker's going coast to coast, and this might be an area where Johnny Nansen helps out just from familiarity in the region. And, hey, maybe Gunnar Helm offers a little bit of an assist. We'll do one or two more recruiting before we go back to UTSA. Justin, another one we talked about on the live a little bit last night. Who's going to be the speed wide receiver in this class? Can Texas flip Kelshawn, or are they targeting someone else?
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here, and this for some reason has a small narrative has grown here, and it's inaccurate, and it needs to be corrected, and that's what we're here to do today. Kalik Lockett is fast, people. Kalik Lockett can go. I've seen it in the track. I've seen the 40. The kid can go. There's no speed here. Even when Jamie French is in slow motion, he's still fast. These kids can run. They rarely give a 5-star to slow wide receivers. It just doesn't work that way. Kalik Lockett can run, and so can Jamie French. Now, Kelshawn runs a little faster, but that's who Kelshawn is. That's his thing. Could they flip him from A&M? I think they absolutely could flip him from A&M. The biggest holdup there in the summer was there's not an inviting depth chart in Austin, and Kelshawn is adamant that he wants to play early. And so I actually caught up with the source again last night, just kind of double backing on some of that Kelshawn info. And that's kind of the gist. Texas liked him and wanted him, and they thought he was going to try to commit even at the spring game. And he kind of pushed it off and took his time. And now you're seeing a lot of recruits with FOMO. They are in a big time fear of missing out. And I think we almost tried to explain this in the summertime, that this could happen if Texas had a good start to 2024, how things just sort of take on a life of itself when it comes to momentum and recruiting. Would they take Kelshawn right now? That's a good question. I think they would. I really do. But I think they'd make him work for it, honestly, because I think the same problem that he had with Texas in the summer hasn't gone anywhere. That depth chart's not changing. And if he comes and he's not happy for 6 months and then goes to the portal, you've wasted resource and time on something you already knew the answer for 12 months before. So at the end of the day, I think Texas likes Kelshawn still. I think there's a little bit of conversation and contact, but you're going to see a lot of receivers start to – and if I'm Kelshawn, I'm looking at what's going on in College Station right now, and Mike Elko's having kind of a slow start when it comes to – getting the offense going. I cannot count anything against McNeese State. I'm sorry. Doesn't work that way. That's not the way the world is. You got to do it with the team that lost to Northern Illinois at home. And so I just don't think that offense is very appealing for Kelshawn right now, and he's having a little bit of fear of grass is greener on the other side.
Before we keep going, one more recruiting question, and it's kind of recruiting, kind of roster building. So, Ian, I'm going to throw this your way. With Texas recruiting pace, do you see the upcoming expanded roster coming from transfers? There's no class counter limit at this juncture. The House settlement, which is all up in flux right now. I think the judge has not really given her stamp of approval onto this case. But the idea that all the conferences has agreed to is 105 roster spots. Do you see Texas going to transfers for those roster spots, or maybe utilizing a different strategy?
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
I would think that you would go a little more transfer heavy. Depending on the position, as we've said many times, because why take flyers on like linebackers or safeties or receivers that you're not sure about, if you can just go watch them dominate at Texas State with G.J. Kinney for a couple years, or Baylor, or wherever he goes next, and then just poach them in the portal, right? So there's some positions where you might as well leave open a lot of spots and fill in.
Also understand with transfers. Remember, Ian, with transfers, what do transfers want to do when they get the portal?
Get paid.
Get paid and go start. As long as their mindset is of the, understanding you're at one of these spots in the 80s and 90s. You're not coming to start. You're coming to be very, very important depth. I think that also changes the minds of some of the transfers, and you may have to just rely on possibly continuing to have a bigger recruiting class.
I really don't know how that's going to play out. 85 is ridiculous. Like, how is it going to be 105?
I don't know where these schools are going to get the money from outside of the top 20, 30 programs in the country. These scholarships cost money, and the NCAA never thinks of those things.
Well, it's going to be TV revenue.
Problem. It's a huge problem that athletic departments still don't know how to figure out. And it's also, that was one of the big reasons it was a topic at SEC spring meetings. It was like, how many people do you need on a roster? And I know people may point to 53 in the NFL, but that's paid professionals. And there's an expectation in the NFL that, in your allotted practice time and in your off season, you're taking care of your own business. You can't always hold that expectation for 18 to 22-year-olds. Way different. Yeah. So it's much different. Walk-ons are up in the air. But
Joe, remember also too, back in the day of these bigger rosters, coaches would get players to keep them away from other schools. Darrell Royal might take 2 or 3 guys so they didn't go to Oklahoma or go to Texas A&M. And so that, to me, is also something that I think would factor into this decision-making roster management.
So there's so much that's about to change. But if it ends up going to 105, and I see Scott in Texas, why 105? Why not 100? That's the cap that this court settlement, if they do agree, would place on football rosters. And there's caps for all different rosters, all different sports. It may eliminate the idea of walk-ons. See, I'm going to go a different direction. I think that I'm trying to think of an old example of someone that Texas didn't offer. Okay, here's a good one. Christian Gonzalez. Y'all remember him? DFW?
Yes.
Ended up
Starting
going to-
corner for the freaking Patriots, goes to Colorado out of the colony. Nobody recruits him, and he goes in the first freaking round.
Right. I think Texas thought he was a safety. He goes to Colorado for the old staff, maybe even McIntyre.
The old
long
staff.
ago.
Plays
Either
lights
McIntyre
out.
or Durrell.
Gives A&M hell.
Transfers to Oregon, I think.
Yes.
Becomes a standout first round corner.
All Pac-2 conference champ and conference. Yeah.
But Texas did not send him an offer. If they have more room, maybe that's a type of player that Texas offers. And so I think you go I would go high school direction. Because what happens if you hit on that? Then you've got them for 3 or 4 years, or maybe 2 or 3 years instead of just a 1-year rental. You keep high school connections happy. You've got players who probably the hunger aspect. I don't know. I think you can have hungry transfers and hungry 3-stars who want it. So I'm kind of curious about that.
And you'll also want a small sector of kids that just want to play at Texas. They just want to put the uniform on. Could have gone to other schools like a Michael Taft, could be a Rice Al right now. You're going to have a few of those guys that just want to go to Texas. And especially if they're winning and that program is on the trick, you're going to have kids that will give up. You're going to have your Jet Bushes that will give up a scholarship to see if they could walk on and potentially earn one at UT.
Right. And so I think I would go the high school route just because if you trust your developmental ability, you can get those guys for a few years instead of just 1 or 2.
And a little bit cheaper on the NIL front, too. You're going to pay a tax when they come through the portal.
Going to bring it back to UTSA discussion, unless, Ian, you had anything else to add?
No, I just think you're right. I think you take a bunch of those preferred walk-ons that you're already counting on, and maybe a couple of those spots instead of the preferred walk-ons, you're like, hey, promising 2-3-star guy, come here and show out on the scout team, and before you know it, you're in the starting lineup. And then if they transfer, whatever.
Maybe they become a first-round pick. So,
if they transfer, it always reminds me of that formula that companies use how much it costs to hire somebody. We used to do this a lot in the oil field. I want to know the cost analysis of a transfer portal guy, like how much it costs to actually get rid of the old guy, paperwork, resources. I bet there's something to that. That's my old oil field mind thinking, but we always had to do cost analysis on what it costs to bring in a guy, train him, get him ready before they actually started, generating revenue. I'd be interested what a transfer portal cost analysis would look like.
In Texas' case, how much it costs to hold them up at the Four Seasons for a weekend. Oh, but that's neither here nor there. Will we see more of Jonte and Silas Bolden in the next 2 games? Ian, I feel like we saw both those guys make plays. I'm curious what you think on this one.
Well, Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond have been good.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how we knew it was going to play out, where it's like if Sark will say whatever, but then if certain guys prove that they are great players and they're reliable go-to guys, then they're going to play and screw the rotation. You can wait your turn, and then when you're the go-to guy, you'll be the one with a chance at a first-round draft evaluation. So maybe we will.
Yes.
Texas
is going to get wider in the next 2 weeks.
Right. But I don't – if Golden and Bond are playing like this, then they're going to play a lot, and that's how it's going to be. And whoever – I'm not accusing Chris of this, but anybody that's in like a wide receiver clique like people do with quarterbacks, like, oh, it's got to be this guy. He's my guy. Like you own stock in his development or something.
That's what it feels like.
you got to be ready to let that go. Like Sark is going to make his picks, and the way Bond and Golden have been playing, it's like, what? Who cares about whoever else? If you're getting elite play, then you're getting elite play.
Like this one from Patrick Page. I believe Sark really digs into his base plays to get those automatic and maybe run a few things off those look to put on film to build on for conference. Sark even talked about this week. You never want to, denigrate the opponent, but he talked a lot about how this is a game about our focus, our preparation, our leadership. And he called out the leaders, basically, not called out in a you messed up way, but challenged the leaders to say, look, you've got to get this game and you've got to prepare for this game just like you were preparing for Michigan. You got to prepare for ULM, who may be the worst team in FBS football. General Booty even.
Are they really?
They're bad. Well, they may be just above Temple, but I would not want to see that game.
I'm pro Booty. I've always been pro Booty. I will always be pro Booty. I'm pro Booty.
Oh, man.
And listen, General, one of the nicest kids you could ever meet. Thank you, General, for introducing me, for giving me in the good graces of Neto Umeozulu. They were really good friends when they went to Allen High School together. General Booty, I am a giant fan, but still, pro Booty.
I think, Patrick Page, you're on point here. Like, we're not going to see a ton. Maybe that Big 12, the tight end package we were talking about earlier, just to get some reps with it and show other teams that they need to prepare for it, but probably not anything too fancy on that front.
I don't know, though, because sometimes Sark, he has so many plays that he's not afraid to put a ton of crap on. Like, I think Sark is of the mindset that of like, yeah, that's one more thing for you to prepare. One more thing for you to tell your scout team to run up for Oklahoma's linebackers to memorize, So I'm not entirely – we'll see. But sometimes Sark is way more impressive in these games than you would think.
I think, wasn't it against UTSA where he did that lateral to Worthy and Worthy threw the touchdown pass? Wasn't it in this game a couple of years ago? Maybe it was West Virginia. So that would have made a lot more sense for a conference game. But I think he's utilized stuff like this in the past to be like, hey, if you see this, prepare for it. So UT parking, other than health, Justin, what's the major focus on this week?
Do not be Notre Dame. Don't get Notre Dame. That was the focus from Sark Sunday morning. Northern Illinois went into South Bend and did something Charlie Strong couldn't do. Score points. And they scored just enough to upset the Fighting Irish. I don't want to jump on that grave. We've got some really good friends in the Notre Dame market, and we have nothing but love for those guys. That's the focus. That's the focus, my man. Hey, do not get it twisted. Sark is going to find something each week that keeps his guys in line because he knows there's something special here. And if they can stay the course and stay healthy, they are going to do something really big in 2024. And so you have to take it 1 week at a time. Don't get Notre Dame this week. Don't get it twisted. UTSA is not going to play as bad as they did last Saturday. The matchups all favor Texas. Go do your job. Get in there. Get out healthy. Get prepared for ULM next week. Pro Booty.
Ian?
That was well put. I would say get those super promising underclassmen good reps. Get Ryan Wingo in the game. Get Colin Simmons in the game. If those guys can get ready to be factors down the stretch, they could be the difference in the national championship or not. Is if at the end of the year you could play a double edge with Trey Moore and Colin Simmons at the same time. If you can play Ryan Wingo because you have an injury or he's just actually become so good that he has to play. That's how I would be thinking about this game. Jared Gibson too, like Justin said. Get Jared Gibson 20 carries, see how it looks, see how it feels.
Yeah, he needs to learn more of the playbook anyway. That's the only reason he doesn't have and that's asking a lot because obviously up until mid-August he didn't know if he's going to be playing in a lot of these games. Get him more antiquated with that offense, and let's see some heavy doses of JG. I didn't know that was his nickname, JG. Ricky Stewart kept calling him that in an interview, and I'm like, JG, that sounds like that old guy off the Inside Texas board. Like, JG, that can't be the same one. And obviously it's not. But Jarrett Gibson, they call him JG. Let's see 20, 25 carries from Mr. Gibson.
Ian, to that point, I think you're right with Wingo and Colin and even Simmons. But even in the next tier, that's important. Guys like Kobe Black in that cornerback rotation. Maybe even Jordan Washington at tight end. And, of course, guys, Arch Manning. Like, what are we talking about here? So
Archibald.
Gotta remember those guys. Trying to think of anything else before want to get to one other kind of general college football question.
I like this. I like this good hating with Swoops. I like that. Hey, we didn't trot Tyrone Swoops out there at quarterback, and Charlie Strong didn't have to either. So
he put Gerard Hurd out there. It was
one play, and remember he got hurt.
The guy who deserves a lot of blame for that particular game, if I remember correctly, is Sean Watson.
Like,
spread offense. We're doing it. Gerard Hurd, you're at home. Oh, we're going to go under center. And it gave you.
And plus, points. Will Fuller was a dude that night. There was nobody that was catching him. Will Fuller made a game. Freshman Josh Adams, he played in the league for a minute. He had a good game. They were just outmatched.
Guys, they had John Bonney on Will Fuller.
Oh, God.
They had now John Bonney ended up being a pretty good player, but he was not a lockdown cornerback that you asked to cover Will Fuller. They had Sean Watson, and Sean Watson was like, "Don't worry, guys, I got Zach Gentry on the way." Remember that?
The tight end at Michigan.
And who's the other one?
Kyle Loxley,
Matthew Merrick.
Oh, Matthew Merrick, man, and that tie to the Kyler Murray. I better not.
We're
past
the University of Texas. It was the University of Texas, and the quarterback recruiting was like he was coaching him.
When you started the season, it was a helpless feeling. You knew. You just knew. How can we just get through this year? When Shane Buechele showed up, it was like the heavens opened up.
It made life a little bit better, but it didn't make it better for long. The big news last night, something to talk about before we get to SEC play. Pac-12, they're going to add Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State, make the Pac-2 into the Pac half of 12. This one's interesting, and I saw a good point on Twitter that this media rights deal is going to be one of the first that comes up. The SEC set for a while, the Big 12 set for a while, Big 10 set for a while, ACC, who knows what happens with Clemson and Florida State. But we're going to learn a lot about this conference and how it measures up in media rights, I think, in the next couple of years. That's a suit conversation. This is a fun conference, though, and I'm curious to see where else, Justin, they may look in addition to adding all the different states.
Scott in Texas and Justin and Tyler are like right here, because I was actually thinking about that when I texted you guys late last night. I believe Ross Dellinger may have broke it, or at least that's the guy I read, talking about the Pac-12 lives. Pac-12 after dark is still a thing. And I was thinking, they're going to branch out and try to get some other different markets. Who could they get in the state of Texas? And Texas State was actually the first school I thought about. G.J. Kinney has got them in a position where they're competitive every Saturday, no matter who they play. Big first win last year over Baylor. Did what they did to UTSA this last week. Then again, I think G.J. Kinney's probably headed to another school, potentially Arkansas and or Baylor next fall. Anyways, Texas State was the school that I thought about. If they want to kind of branch out in that market, you may not think that would make much of a dent, but let things play out. Let these other conferences build and fill out rivalries and have traditions so that we kind of can keep a glimpse of that and not just be so playoff driven all the time.
I'm with that. I thought about UTEP for a second.
The Fighty Scotty Walden.
And I know they're in Conference USA, and that's not a bad place to be right now. But I mean, UTEP is closer to San Diego than it is to Houston, I think, or something like that. Maybe closer to Phoenix and Austin. Like maybe that's a place they look. Ian, thoughts on the Pac half 12?
Playoff driven. Try to present the strongest possible champion so we can get that 5th spot, which isn't going to exist soon anyway. So whatever, they can do whatever. It's irrelevant. It's going to be minor league football.
Yeah. Real quick with Daddy Trill, they had a good secondary. Boyd, Hill, and Jones. Here's a little tip. That was the first football game for all 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
Chris Boyd didn't play in the secondary. He only played on special teams because he absolutely obliviated C.J. Sanders on a punt return where it's essentially a bull seeing red, and we knew they had a dude that night. Those were all freshmen in their very first game.
Yeah, they were like a few weeks later, they all had to play.
Cal.
And Vance Bedford was like, I'm playing all freshmen. We'll see how it's going to go.
Remember against Cal, they had that walk-on that absolutely torched Texas. Like I think it's Hanson or something. Davis Webb was the guy. Hanson was like some grizzled walk-on who had earned a scholarship and become like one of those really good college receivers. I was down on the sideline. Those guys were struggling that night. And then they let Breckenhager talk to the media, and that was a story of its own.
That was the next year.
That was 2016.
This year was Jared
Jones was a freshman.
Jared Goff came into DKR and put on a show. That's what happened.
Yes.
That's the year it was.
Yeah. Y'all need to quit living in the past. Y'all want to talk SEC?
It's a safe place now, Joe. We can finally dwell. We've developed a healthier rhythm in life. We can go back to the trauma of the past and we can process it.
Wounds heal from the inside out, Joe. I know you're a family. You're a family of doctors. You know medicine. Wounds heal from the inside out.
One story about the Jared Goff game. Remember, Gerard Hurd had that long run, and that was
he broke the yardage record that game,
2015. And of everybody around me, I was the only one still watching the extra point. So everybody else keeps celebrating, and I'm just like that.
Wait.
Anyway. Remember Charles and Minihu on the sideline?
That was Kansas.
That was Kansas.
No. There was a Cal one where there was like I think it was Charles. They're like celebrating on the sideline. They're like doing a dance, and then they look over and they're like, "Huh?" And it was an amazing gift. It was one of many amazing gifts of Texas fail from the era.
Safe space.
We are in the SEC, so let's focus on that. I'm going to scroll through this. Tell me when you see something you want to talk about, and I already see a typo. Boston College is 2-0. I'll get that fixed. Alabama at Wisconsin, LSU at South Carolina for game day, Boston College at Missouri. Any of these stand out? I
like all 3 of them.
Intriguing games.
I like all 3 of them, to be honest with you. I think there's something intriguing about each one of them. I think Missouri's going to sort of expose BC a little bit early. I think LSU is going to sort of expose South Carolina a little bit early. And then Alabama, Wisconsin, I'm not comfortable with the way Alabama's won their first 2 games if I'm a Bama's fan. I mean, everybody's going to still scream Roll Tide, and I get it because they're 2-0. But that I'm starting to see more handprint of DeBoer than you're seeing with Saban in a sense. And so Camp Randall can be a little tricky up there. It's an early kickoff. So that they're all interesting to me, Joe.
The one I want to note is that Boston College game, just because this is the first test for Missouri. They haven't played anybody, and they've beaten the hell out of both teams. I think South Carolina is going to get outscored. I'm with you on Alabama, but this Missouri game, this is one I'm paying attention to, not because Boston College under Bill O'Brien's some world beater, but they are better than the 2 opponents the Tigers have already faced. Ian, thoughts on any of these 3?
Who's Wisconsin playing at quarterback this year?
Tyler Van Dyke.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The old Miami quarterback.
I've been
Van Dyke?
Yeah. I've been down on the I loved when they hired Luke Fickell. Thought that was an impressive hire. And then when he immediately hired a spread guy,
Longo.
Phil Longo, I was like, well, wait a minute. How's that going to work? You're going to the
Not
land
just spread, but air raid.
Yeah. It was like you're going to the land of fullbacks. You're not going to the land of speed. Like there's a story that Brett Bielema was told when he went to Wisconsin. People were like, in Wisconsin, it's big people. And he's like, okay. And then he went up there and he said there was like a 6'10", 280-pound high school kid bagging his groceries. And he was like, where am I? This is like the land of the giants. And his strategy reflected that. I don't know if I believe in it. Van Dyke is a good quarterback. I think I'm very interested to see if they look a little better this year. Last year, Wisconsin looked about how I thought it would look, trying to import who's that quarterback from SMU, from Waco Midway?
Tanner Mordecai.
Is it like Tanner Mordecai in Oklahoma State's backup wide receiver and like Arizona State's second banana receiver or something like that? And it went about like you'd think. And I'm very curious if they've improved it or if this is going to be another game where it's like, nope, this is not going to work.
Joe, look at that line. 2.5, over 2 touchdowns on the road.
Yeah.
That looks like a square that you might need to look at.
Well, more on that game. Let's keep going. The one in Gainesville.
Hey, A&M in Florida. That's the garbage game. Whoever comes out of that one losing has to carry the garbage for the next 2 weeks. That's the garbage game.
The intriguing part of that is quarterback, the DJ Lagway, Graham Mertz dynamic. I think Gators Online, our On3 Florida site, has said Mertz will start, but Lagway is going to play.
I didn't hear that. I thought Lagway had gotten the start. Oh man, what is Mertz doing?
Mertz is back from the protocol.
So Lagway should be the quarterback. Oh, bless his heart. It'll end soon.
You gotta hold that card though. You want to play Lagway when he's best position because he's your saving grace. He's like you put him in at the end of the year when he's ready, and he's like, "Well, you better not fire me, or this kid's going to transfer."
Right? No. You're 100%. I think that should be expedited 2 months sooner because he may not make it to DJ's next start.
Yeah, and the other thing is with the portal, portal could render this all moot. You could just say, like, I'm out. See you later. I don't care who's coming back. This stunk. And I don't think Lagway's that type of kid.
He's not. He's very much not.
It's still the way college football is these days. Good kids make those decisions.
That's a big game for Elko too, because I don't know if people realize how demoralized A&M was by the whole Jimbo Fisher deal. Their fans and their donors are hanging on by a thread. And if they lose to Florida and the season is over, then they are going to check out until the Texas game. They won't be able to help themselves, right? And the recruiting and all the potential for any kind of momentum or like keeping things on track is gone. And then Elk, I don't know, man. Like they could be going like into the dark ages down in College Station.
I was expecting a little bit more from Wagman against Notre Dame. We didn't see it. He did a lot better against McNeese State. I will give him credit for that. If Wigman can come out and really – I think he can be a great quarterback, guys. I'm still a Connor fan. If he can come out and do the right thing, I mean, get the ball to the right hands, I think A&M should go in there and win. But I really do think it's going to revolve around what Wagman can do because Florida kind of knows what they can and can't. I think A&M's still trying to figure that out.
A&M is a road favorite, but they haven't won a road game in, 3 years? So a lot of different things going on in the swamp.
First time for everything.
Ian, we don't have 15 minutes, but Tulane at Oklahoma. What you got?
Well, I'm going to pick this for the roundtable, and I'll give a fuller treatment of it. But they are in a pickle. because they know, like, we could lose this game, and if we lose this game, our season is over. But in 2 weeks, we play Tennessee, and Josh Heupel is coming, with his belt ready to go. So
payback.
It's like, if you beat Tennessee, that's a big deal. But if you don't beat Tulane, then just forget about everything else. So
I'm surprised. I didn't realize they're number 15.
They didn't drop. I think they had more people.
No, I know. I guess I didn't pay enough attention the first time. I didn't realize that they're going to be ranked that high to begin with. And I still think that, their defense is something they can build off of. I like that secondary. I think is actually pretty salty, at least in the safety room. Man, Tulane, they still have some overlap from the Fritz era, so I still think they have some guys down there.
The question for OU's offense is, can they get healthy? Because they're missing skill guys. And can the offensive line do something?
Can they find a center?
Yeah. Like if their offensive line is that bad, they could have anybody out there out wide, even if Nick Anderson comes back. Like, they're not going to have time to get him the ball. Like, the O-line has to be fixed. I think Jackson Arnold, he's good enough for what they need to do this year, but that O-line is not.
And that's going to affect his development. Look, Jackson's a good quarterback. Jackson could be a really good quarterback. That O-line is a problem. They have not surrounded him, one, with skill guys, and two, with an adequate offensive line. So I don't, we bag on Jackson a little bit because it's fun, but honestly, like, that kid can be really good. I think he needs to be in better circumstances, and that may not be in Norman.
UAB at Arkansas, I don't think there's anything here. It's a 24.5-point favorite. Arkansas probably wants to get to 2-1 as quick as possible. Trent Dilfer's not a good coach.
Taylor Green will go for 300 yards.
Moving on. All right. Ole Miss at Wake Forest on the CW. And Ian and I were trying to figure out our favorite CW shows. Couldn't really come up with that much. This is kind of similar.
I can't even tell you a CW show.
It's a lot of syndicated stuff. So a lot of old Seinfeld, How I Met Your Mother reruns.
Oh, okay. I thought you talked about like original CW programming.
We were trying to figure that out.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like they're on the CW or something 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's all
the Chris Rock little sitcom.
This is what the UPN and the WB were.
Yeah, that's it.
So
okay.
This is an ACC vestige or newfangled vestige. This is kind of like Missouri for me. Like, this is the first Power 5 team Ole Miss is going to face, but I mean, they're still 3 touchdown favorites. So maybe Wake Forest gives them a game, but I anticipate Lane having more fodder for social media.
You mean tweeting out more shirts about size matters and taking shots at veiled shots at Feinbaum? Those are my favorite Lane tweets.
They're not veiled. They're front and center.
So what is it exactly you do here? I mean, he's gold. Don't ever let him out of Oxford until Florida hires him, obviously, in December.
This is one of those stay healthy games.
Yeah. Vandy, the Fighting Diego Pavillas. I am so in on Paul's guy. That dude is a freaking warrior. I am paying attention to Vandy. That's a trap game this year, fellas. You better keep your eyes on the prize.
I always mix up Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Georgia State's where Clay Helton's at. It's in Atlanta. Center Park Stadium, Justin, that's Turner Field that they revamped.
Oh, so they'll see some Brave stuff. Okay.
So Georgia State, they're with Clay Helton.
Dell McGee, is he the head coach at Georgia State now? Didn't the running back believe he was
Georgia Southern? He's
the Georgia Southern. Okay.
And Georgia Southern's uniforms are like blue Alabama.
They're
State
beautiful. Navy blue, and they're beautiful.
Georgia State. I'm almost.
They're a regular blue.
No, you're right. It is Dell McGee. Where is Clay Helton then? I can't remember.
Not USC.
Yeah, not USC. So Dell McGee at Georgia State hosting Vanderbilt. I mean, if Clark Lee wants to get to a bowl, he's got to win this one.
Yeah.
Anything to see here, Ian, especially as it pertains to Texas' future opponent?
Yeah, I guess. But I'll probably revisit it in like 5 or 6 weeks when it's game week. I don't know if I will. What time? At 6 p.m. There's no way I'm going to give that much attention this week.
Yeah,
probably
working.
Let's be honest. When I look back at Vanderbilt, I'm not going to use the Georgia State tape for reference. So, no, nothing to see. Georgia, Kentucky. That's the one.
I was shocked by Kentucky looking as crappy as they did on offense.
Same.
Well, it makes more sense now. I didn't realize they had Georgia so early the week after.
They were probably overlooking South Carolina.
They were 100% guaranteed they were looking ahead to Georgia.
Yeah. That was my trap game this year. And like Michael Taft said, step in your trap, take your trap.
This Georgia's a 24-point road favorite. I don't know if y'all see SEC shorts this week?
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific.
Those are gold.
The Kentucky got they were properly lampooned for their lack of offensive output.
I'm telling you, I thought Brock Vandagriff would be that guy, and he could still be that guy, but you got to be suspect of a 2024 SEC D1 starting quarterback with a flip phone. There's something off.
I'm more suspect of a 3 for 10 day passing. That's my issue. One thing we know Georgia and Kirby Smart. He's so good at motivating. He convinced his team last year. People thought they were going to go 7-5. I forget the name of that linebacker, Ian, but the one that transferred from Georgia to Kentucky. I bet they're going to try to show that guy what he's missing out on now that he's in blue instead of red.
Jason Dumas or Dumas Johnson, something like that. Dumas is involved in the name somewhere. They had like a dude. He was going to get replaced by another more talented up-and-comer, basically. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he'll be the one that's a little bit looking to make a point. I think should have kept me. Should have paid me.
That Mississippi State game. That's something I'd like to. I'm curious how that will play out because that's who Texas opens SEC play with at home in 3 weeks, Joe? 3 or 4 weeks.
28. Yeah.
I'm curious what Fighting Jeff Levy's how they're gonna handle that. They've got some guys from Texas. They plucked some of those Kelly Akari who played at Tyler Junior College and at UTEP. Like Levy went into known parts to pull some JUCO kids. So I'm kind of getting an eye on Mississippi State just because Texas is gonna see those guys and Levy will have a pretty good scheme like he did last year in the Red River Shootout.
Is that where you think Jackson Arnold will be next year, Justin?
You know what, Ian? I wouldn't put it past it.
Yeah.
I think y'all are overlooked.
Especially if Venables dives into the Mikey Hawkins development, which will only benefit Texas because I don't know if you guys remember Paul Thompson. Well, they're about the same.
So here's the thing about Mississippi State. Blake Shapen, former Baylor guy, is their quarterback, and he's a senior. I can't tell if he's got an extra year or not. Y'all skipped over Auburn. Like, that's a team that needs a quarterback. That's a team that would throw money around it, bringing a quarterback in.
Well, their hair's going to play on fire after losing to Cal last week. They're going to come out and be better and more prepared. But the last time a school from New Mexico went into Jordan-Hare, buddy, Hugh Freeze was frozen. It wasn't good. And so I think there might be a little bit of backlash on that one. I think that's where you'll see they'll thump those boys on Saturday. They should, in theory.
What do y'all think about Nico in Tennessee?
I think he is legit. I think he's got a live arm. I just think he's a little careless.
They can run the ball. I mean, their offense is designed to be able to help them run the ball, but they can do that pretty darn good. And and they have talent outside. So they got all the right pieces to make that offense work. I mean, I don't know about this. Next week is the one when they go into Norman. That line only just now flipped to Tennessee minus like 2.5. Oklahoma's been favored like all offseason and in the first few weeks. And I'm like, the whole time I've been like, how in the world is Oklahoma favored to beat Tennessee? And after this week, I bet that line moves even more.
You know, Nico reminds me of a quarterback in the 90s named Jeff George. He was the number 1 overall pick out of Illinois. He had the strongest arm that NFL scouts had seen in 10, 15 years. Wound out carving out a really nice NFL career with the Falcons and with the Colts. That's Nico, just from a live arm. I mean, the ball comes out with some serious velocity.
I'm going to show you all a picture real quick before we get out. This is On3's 2023 quarterback rankings. And let me know if you can see it. Maybe tough to make out. I'll just stick to the top 5. Number 1's Arch. Number 2's Dante Moore. And number 3 is Nico. But this is the industry ranking. If you go to On3's ranking, and this was controversial, I know our board was on fire about it. On3 ranked it Nico, Arch, Jackson Arnold. So the $8 million man has had a lot of supporters in the scouting world, especially at On3, and he's good.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, On3's based where?
Good point. Nashville. But Nico's from California. And
I know.
Got a fat check. What was it, Ian? I said this team looks like 2014 Baylor in a sense.
Really?
Yeah. Similar.
Well, I guess with Heupel, you're right. Okay, there's going to be some browse concepts there, and there's going to be similar talent. That makes sense. Good call, Ian.
Going just at about 70 minutes, and that'll wrap it up today. We'll have a lot more coverage over the next couple of days heading into the game. We'll have the round table. The deep dive comes out this afternoon, maybe some other videos as well. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. That's where you will get the best Texas Longhorns football coverage. Over 4,000 on all our platforms. We appreciate you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.